log into the chatbot tool, you can aim it at your website and it'll crawl your website and it'll train itself on all of your website content that you want to train it on. And you can tell it what not to train it on and so on and so forth. Then when you deploy the chatbot, it's been trained on what's on your website and you can ask questions of what's there. So I'm going to break out of the PowerPoint for right now. I'm going to stop screen sharing. I'm going to switch my screen share. Okay, and I'm going to go to my ChatGPT window. And you should be seeing my web browser, which has ChatGPT in it. And since we're talking about chatbots, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the SCORE website. And this is score.org. And you'll notice down here, there is they want you to sign in. And I'm going to start a chat. You'll hear it beeping and booping. So rather than searching and finding a business plan template, I'm going to go ahead and ask it, I'm looking for a business plan template. Sorry for my typing. I'm not a great typer. And let's see what it comes up with here. It's thinking. Here we go. So it's come up with a number of things. It's talked about what I can do to create a template, and it's actually given me some links. So here's how to write a one-page plan. And if I go down there, this is a seminar that I can view. If I go back here, there's some other stuff, how to build a draft plan. Here's another template for building a draft plan. So that's an example very quickly of how we can use a chatbot to crawl your website, and then you can ask questions. Now, we also, on SCORE's own support center, which is what we mentors go to, we have I'm going to close this chat. I'm going to go ahead and submit. I'm going to see if I can refresh this to get my chat to restart. There we go. There we go. I'm I'm a mentor looking for resources. Say I'm looking for resources for veterans.
Charlie, just let me break in. We're seeing the score screen, but not the chat GPT.
No, that's fine. I'm in a browser
Okay.
and I'm doing a demo of how to use this chatbot. I'm about to switch back to
Oh, okay.
ChatGPT.
All right. Sorry for.
So I've asked it to look for veterans resources. It's come out here and it's fine. It said here you can download the Veterans Entrepreneur Toolkit, and lo and behold, it's given as a mentor, I can now find these tools. So this is an example of how a chatbot works. Okay. So these are very common with businesses. They're not that expensive to deploy, and many of them are trained to crawl your website. And this particular chatbot that you just saw, somebody asked, this is a chatbot tool from a company called chatbot.com, which we use at SCORE. Okay, so this is not a chat GPT tool, but I wanted to show you how these chatbots work. So the first thing that I want to do is give, as a SCORE mentor and a chapter chair, I sometimes get questions from our mentors for how to do certain things. So the one thing I wanted to do is just have a very simple query. Act as an IT support expert. The common question I get from a mentor: how do I create a signature in Gmail? And I just want to use this as a simple example of how these tools work. So it's giving me step by step in instructions for how to do it. And notice it gives me a pro tip. If you use Gmail on, you need to set up a mobile signature separately. Here's how. So this will be the only time that I break out to some other tools. This is Gemini. So this is the Google um, large language model tool. I'm going to go ahead and ask it the exact same question, and it has come out with a very similar answer. Okay, and then finally, I'm going to switch to Microsoft Copilot, which is another large language model that a lot of folks use. I'm going to ask it the exact same question. And again, this just shows you that they all work about the same. So this was a very simple example using three AI tools. And then last, there's another class of tool I wanted to mention that is more of an AI tool wrapped around a search engine. This is another tool that I use called Perplexity. I'll talk about that at the end as an example of other tools, but let's see what this does. This actually goes out and it searches the web more broadly. And it actually gives me links to videos showing me how to do it, as well as step-by-step tools. And why I mention Perplexity specifically is it takes AI and it kind of wraps a search engine around it. And so this is actually, if you're doing technical support, there are a lot of companies that use Perplexity um, to help their technical support people get answers. And it's a really nice tool, but it's a more special purpose tool than ChatGPT. But I just thought that I would share it for right now. Let's go back to ChatGPT. What I'd like to do now is switch to a content creation example. So one of the first things that a small business usually wants to do with these tools is create some sort of marketing copy. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a prompt and I'm going to pretend to be the owner of a jewelry shop. And I'm going to ask it to act as a public relations expert with 20 years of experience. You also have extensive experience with digital marketing and social media posting. This is this is how I'm tuning it to act as a particular expert. Then I'm saying, I'm telling it the problem. I am a small business owner who owns a jewelry shop. I have a new diamond engagement ring design. Please write a 500-word press release that is engaging and exciting, announcing the new product. And then I tell it the target audience are young, affluent, engaged couples looking for engagement rings. So here we go. It did it very quickly, and notice it put it in because I told it how to act. I told it the role to take on, the persona, they call it, and it came up with a a press release. It came up with some draft copy, and notice it came up with all the things you expect at the bottom of a press release. Now, just to demonstrate the context window, I forgot to tell it that that this has a white gold mounting and expert workmanship. So it's going to remember everything that it told me and that I asked it before, but it's going to rewrite the press release. Notice it's still saying 500 words, so it remembered everything that I said. This is that transformer piece where it's remembering what you asked it before. So now it highlighted white gold. It went through all sorts of things about craftsmanship. And finally, I'm going to say, okay, the other thing I forgot to tell it was that we use really good diamonds. So add a focus on flawless diamonds. So it's going to go through again. And now it's going to say, okay, we have white gold, we have flawless diamonds, perfectly presented, expert craftsmanship. And again, I never suggest taking what ChatGPT says and just using it. This is a really good start as the business owner. You take what ChatGPT gave you, you keep what works, you edit what doesn't, and you can even give ChatGPT back the edited versions that you've changed and say, here's the edited version. Now I'd like to continue working with this to do other things. And let me give you an example of those other things. So now that I have a press release that I'm happy with, the next thing a business owner might wish to do is, okay, I've got the press release, I've got the product. Now I'd like to do a blog article for my website. So it has the press release and it knows what blogging is. So there we go, introducing our new white gold engagement ring, flawless diamonds, and timeless craftsmanship. And it used the information in the press release and then use that to write this blog. And again, you can take what it did, edit it, change it, make it sound like you. A matter of fact, if you've written other blogs in your tone, you can give it your blogs, say, hey, this is the style of blog that I write. Learn from my blog style. Now write a blog for me on this topic. And then it'll sound like it came from you. Okay. Lastly, typically, when you have your blog article and you have your press release, you typically might want to have a 200 character social media post announcing the product. So it has the blog, it has the press release, and now it's creating complete with emojis and hashtags, um, introducing our new white gold and flawless diamonds, the perfect symbol of forever. And then it's asking, would you like me to create a few alternative variations? So I'm going to say yes, and let's see what it does. This is me going off the cuff. So it's creating a romantic version, a luxury focused version, a modern version, a playful version, and an editorial version. And this is all stuff that it's suggested to do. So there are a couple questions in the chat that I just want to answer in context. How long will it remember? ChatGPT saves these chats, okay? So that when you leave ChatGPT and you come back, the chat's there and you can continue the chat and it will pick it up just where it left off, remembering all the previous context. Somebody also asked security concerns. I'll talk about it later, but I always turn off what's called improving the model. They call model training. ChatGPT will ordinarily train its model on anything it reads, anything that you give it. That doesn't mean it's stealing your stuff and reproducing it for somebody else. It just means that it's learning from it. So you don't want to give ChatGPT anything personally identifiable, anything secret to your company, unless you have this training turned off. And I turn it off all the time. And another question is if you start a new context window, it will not remember what was in other context windows. I believe there's a setting to have it do that. Personally, I've never used that setting, but I believe there's a setting that it'll remember context across chats. That's something that maybe you all can try and tell me about it. Okay, moving on to an example of a GPT. So we in SCORE have a particular problem, and that is when a mentor becomes a mentor, we want them to have a really good profile. And one thing that mentors are kind of not good at is writing really good profiles. So we wrote a profile improvement tool, and this is a GPT that we built. I'm not going to go into detail about how to build these tools, but um, we trained it on what a good mentor profile is. We gave it examples of good profiles. And then I'm going to go ahead and run it. And then we can give this anything we want. So I'm going to give it my resume. This is or I could have given it my LinkedIn profile or anything that I want. I'm going to say, okay, I gave it my resume. Let it let it go at it and build a profile. So here's the profile that it built from my resume. At the top of SCORE profiles, there's always a brief statement of what you specialize in. There's a little bit about who you are. We have sections for what you offer to clients so they can see in a bullet list. And then we talk about a bit about me. I was a chief technology officer and vice president in global operations, yada, yada. And then it gives a call to action. So, and then there are certain words that, and then I had it echo back the rules that it followed. It's under 300 words. It followed our profile pattern. It wrote it in standalone first person sentence structure. We mined the Google keyword phrases that people use to find mentors, and we had the tool enrich the mentor profiles with the Google keywords. So that means that we know how people are finding us, and we're gaming the Google SEO mechanisms by adding keywords to our profiles. So this is an example of a tool that we built. For most of you that know what you write for a website, most website stuff is written for people with a ninth grade education. We told it to write in that style. So this is an example of where we use ChatGPT in SCORE to help create mentor profiles. Now, our protocol with using this is the mentors give us the information they want to use. We give them the profile back, and they're required to manually edit it to make sure that they're happy with it. We never take it right out of ChatGPT and put it on our website because we always insist on human oversight of anything coming out of AI. And we'll talk about that soon. Okay, a couple other things that I want to go over. I want to go over using it for marketing tasks. So I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to say act as a personal branding assistant. So this is where if you're building a website and you want some branding statements about you. So I said, act as a branding assistant. I'm an IT consultant. This is me. I love technology. I'm focused on identifying and providing solutions. My buzzword is what the phrase is, what's the business problem that we're trying to solve? So I'll add to the prompt, please create a personal branding statement. And these are the types of things you find at the top of LinkedIn profiles. So here's my personal branding statement. I'm an IT consultant who bridges the gap between technology and business. You can see that it did a pretty good job. This is something I'd be proud to put on top of my LinkedIn profile or on top of my website describing who I am. So now, one of the things, knowing your brand, we can start to explore what's the value, if this is my brand, what's the value proposition for my customer segment? And I described my customer segment before being mom and pop shops. So let's align your value proposition statement to your customer segment. So here we go. For small retailers who struggle with complexity of technology, I'll provide tailored ICT solutions that solve real big business problems, not just technical ones. So pretty cool. Now on my website, if I cater to mom and pop shops, I can have this value proposition of how I can help them. But let's go a little further than that. Let's say, okay, now that you know stuff about me, propose 5 additional customer segments who might be interested in my skills. So say you're a business who's looking for new customer segments to get into. ChatGPT is going to offer some help. Saying independent healthcare practices, nonprofits, professional services, and it tells how I might be able to help them. So it's suggested, and I'm just going to take these at face value. Now I'm going to ask it, okay, now you've suggested customer segments. Now write value propositions catered to each customer segment. So it talks about how with my skills, I can help this customer segment, the nonprofits delivering affordable, practical technology solutions. I can help law firms and stuff streamline operations. So if you can imagine you're building your website, at the top, what's you or your company's brand? And then you have pieces of your website that deal with your customer segments. Oh, this is how I can help mom and pop shops. This is how I can help law firms. This is how I can help nonprofits. ChatGPT just took me a long way toward identifying new customer segments, identifying how I could possibly help them. And so this is an example of content management, of starting with branding, moving down to value propositions and looking at customer segments. So this is incredibly helpful for people who want to try to grow a business. Okay. Next example that I want to go to is one of the things that companies have in abundance is survey data. So for SCORE, you'll fill out a survey on this seminar, and we'll get hundreds of them, and they'll contain a lot of free form text. So I quickly uploaded a spreadsheet with text on how people describe seminars from SCORE. So I'm asking it to ask as a sentiment analysis expert, and I'm saying I will provide the reasons for a seminar rating. I would like you to analyze and provide a summary of the sentiments. The webinar comments refer to free business-focused webinars offered to small businesses. So I gave it a table full of a lot of free-form text. So it's going down here and it's analyzing that data. Sometimes it can take a bit of time. You can see it's flashing a bit. So let's see what it has to say. There we go. So the overall sentiment distribution was positive, neutral, negative. The positive feedback themes, you can see here, the neutral themes and the negative themes were not always aligned with expectations. Sometimes it's salesy. And then it gives the key takeaways of what it found. In very short order, I took a lot of feedback and I figured out what it meant without having to sit down and read through each and every one. Then I can ask it, which I will do now, given all the data in this chat, how is SCORE doing overall with its seminar program? So I'm asking its opinion of what it read. So SCORE's performing well with over 60% participants being explicitly positive. Strengths are high content value, positive perception of SCORE's mission, delivery and professionalism, and it says areas to improve. So greater interactivity. Some felt preventers occasionally got salesy, which we understand that sometimes happens. And a few comments suggested that not all topics and details were applicable. So really cool stuff that you can analyze this data and do it quickly and get an idea of how you're doing if you have surveys for your clients. The next example I'd like to give is language translation, because ChatGPT is very good at translating languages. It supports over 60 languages. I'm giving it the description for this seminar, and I want it to convert it to Spanish. Well, let's go ahead and do that. So here's the Spanish version. I've tested this against Google Translator, and it's very effective. It's amazing how good this thing is. And it not only supports the Western language sets, it also supports the Eastern character sets. So let's go ahead and say translate it to Mandarin. And lo and behold, we we have the seminar description in Mandarin. So I just wanted to go through quickly that it does language translation very well. And I just have two more short demos. One of the questions came up in the chat, will it handle financial data? And they read my mind because yes, it can. So I'm going to give it some sample transactional data um, um, that I found. This is fake data from a Staples-like store. And what I'm going to ask it to do is I'm going to act as a data analyst in transactional sales data. And I told it the type of data that I'm going to give it. I wanted to clean up the data, apply appropriate types. That's one of the things ChatGPT is really good at is cleaning data because data is frequently dirty. So let's go ahead and let it loose on this data. Here's the sales data. Notice it has row ID, ship date, customer name, segment, country, the number, all typical sales stuff. So it went through, it cleaned it, it added appropriate date types, and now it said, I'm ready to go. So let's ask it some questions. What does a small business owner typically do first? Well, they want to see their sales over time. Or do you want to take a sip of iced tea before we move on? And this is an example of where ChatGPT can indeed generate graphics. And you can download these graphics and embed them in your PowerPoints or your Word documents, um, or do anything that you want. So it gave me a nice graphical representation. The next thing I want to do is, as a salesperson, as a business owner, I might want to know, can you determine any seasonal trends in my data? So it's going to go through and it's going to analyze all, and I believe in the data set that I gave it, there's about 9,000 rows of data. I've given it far more data than 9,000 rows. So there's my average sales by month, the average sales by quarter. And so when we go down to the seasonal insight, it says there's a strong Q1, especially March, and there's another peak in Q4 tied to holiday shopping. So it identified some seasonal trends. Let me go in here and a couple other questions that a business owner may want to ask. What are my top 10 selling items by dollar amount? There it is. There's the product. So these advanced copiers are their biggest selling products by dollar amount. It gives it in tables. Next question is, what are my top 10 selling items by quantity? So same thing, staples, envelopes. It gives me the numbers and all that good stuff. And it did it very quickly. Imagine trying to get some of this data out of Excel. Okay. You can even ask it to be a little creative. Okay, knowing what I've just shown you, what can I do to increase sales? Let's have it. So you can leverage your high dollar products, boost volume of consumables, address the seasonal issues. So run spring promotions during slower months. Look at your customer segments. Corporate home office may have different products. Look at so it actually looked at my data and it gave me some suggestions based on what it found. So a couple other things we might want to ask it. Who are my top 10 customers by dollar amount sold? There we go. Sean Miller is our top buying client. Okay. And then the one interesting one that I like looking at is what products tend to be purchased together. This is what's called the market basket analysis. So it doesn't directly do market basket analysis, but it can start by computing. So some of the top. So let's look at top pairs. So analyze. It suggested things that it can do. So let's just have it do that. And there we go. It's looking at things that were sold in pairs. And so I'll give an example of where I helped this. We have a mentor who has donut shops at the New Jersey Shore, and he has three of them. And he wanted to put in a drink kiosk. So we analyzed all his site data and we looked at the ones that were selling the most um, um, coffee only sales. And we figured out which store it was, and then that's the store he decided to test putting a drink kiosk in. And we did all that data with ChatGPT, looking at a couple years of his data. and it worked really, really well. Okay, last example. And this is something, so I'm going to start a new chat. This is ChatGPT is capable of writing code. And as a former software developer myself, um, it, it's an assistant for programmers in writing snippets of code. So I'm going to give it a picture that I drew on the back of a napkin or back of a piece of paper. And I wanted to build the HTML for this login screen. So there's my picture, and it's interpreting the picture. So you can give ChatGPT images and ask it things about the picture and have it do things with it. Well, one of the examples that I've seen is somebody had a very messy, dirty room, and they gave ChatGPT a picture of the room and said, can you develop a plan for me to clean this room? And it did. So anyway, here it's building the HTML, and I'm just showing you how it's doing it. But here is essentially what it built. This is running the HTML that it built in the past. It built a login screen that I can type in usernames and passwords. It put in the buttons. It didn't do a great job, but it's interesting that it wrote code. So for you website designers who like to tinker with websites or like to tinker with Python code, this thing will write code for you. It's very impressive. So, okay, I'm going to stop this share, and I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. I'm going to go ahead and share that screen. My apologies for my lame screen sharing here. And I'm going to go back to my main share here. Okay, you should be seeing my entire screen. These are all the things that I've cut and pasted. So I'm going to go ahead and skip back to, okay. Next piece I'd like to talk about is image creation. ChatGPT can create images. As of right now, if you take an image created by AI, it can't be trademarked or copyrighted unless it's substantially changed. Let me give you an example of how this was used. This is, I have a very close friend of mine across town who sells vanilla beans from his house on Amazon. And he's kind of my size, not exactly a small guy. And I jokingly said, you should have a mascot and call him the Vanilla Gorilla. So we experimented with using AI to create a mascot, and this green box over the side is an example of his packaging. And he actually used a tool and he created the Vanilla Gorilla, and he edited it a bit because one thing AI is really bad with is creating the right amount of fingers. So it kept creating the 2 and 3 finger gorilla, and he just edited it and fixed it, but he puts it on his packaging now, and it's the Vanilla Gorilla. And this is an example of how a business owner actually did something like this. ChatGPT, all these tools can create images. They can also create prompts for other image generation tools like Midjourney. The tool that my friend used is called Leonardo. That's the one that created this image of the gorilla on the right-hand side. I wanted to give you an example of bias with AI, and doing it via an image is the best way to do it. So I asked it to create me a prompt for Midjourney, which is another tool, create a hyper realistic image of a happy child with an apple. This is what it created. Notice it's a really beautiful image. And notice two characteristics of the children. They're predominantly white and they look male. Okay, so is AI biased toward male white people? The truth is, yes, but not maliciously so. It's it's trained on a lot of information, and a lot of the imagery that it's trained on, sadly enough, is all white men. Okay. So when you're understanding that AI can be biased, I made I made one change to the prompt. I said, create a hyper realistic image of a happy multi ethnic child holding an apple. This is what I got. Okay, so just understand there is bias in AI, and if you want very specific results, ask for them, or it's possible that you'll get biased results. Okay. Okay, and there's a ton more that you can do. We just offered another seminar at Score National about how to find uses of AI in your business. That's out there if people would like to view it. And these are just examples that just to get your creative juices flowing as you read this slide deck. Tons of benefits. You can save time, reduce costs, increase efficiency. With the chatbots, you can enhance customer satisfaction. You can foster innovation. There's barely a day that goes by that I don't use AI to help me brainstorm. Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about the ethical and legal concerns. Um, I went to Moravian College, what is now Moravian University, years ago, and a current accounting professor was asked by his students, "Will AI replace me?" And he tells his students, "AI will not replace you. A person that knows AI and how to use it will replace you." I won't be there are some jobs that will be lost to AI, and I think a lot of those jobs will be in the marketing and content creation world, where AI makes it very, very easy to do what marketing people do. But just understand there's professional value that marketing people add that you have to be careful that you may lack. For instance, we use marketing people at my chapter at Score, and they create very good copy, and more importantly, they know where to place it. So, so we use marketing pros all the time. So, um, social issues, racial, gender, and social biases. Be careful. They can be in ChatGPT. It's not malicious. It's not intentional. It's just on the amount of information that it's trained. Expect a certain amount of job displacement due to AI, but understand having skills with AI is a differentiator. If you know how to use I call AI a force multiplier. I can now do with AI 2 to 3 times more things than I could do by myself. Um, plagiarism. I've never seen a case where ChatGPT deliberately plagiarizes something else, but it's possible. That's why when I use ChatGPT, I use it in concert, especially when I'm creating content with other tools like Grammarly. And Grammarly has been around forever. It's a writer's aid. I've used it for years, and it also has a plagiarism checker. So I use it in concert with AI to make sure that I'm not plagiarizing, and copyright issues. Wholly generated AI content cannot be copyrighted. There are cases of this working through the courts now. Pardon me for taking a sip. Okay, somebody in the chat asked, how do I turn off training in ChatGPT? You go into the settings, you go to the data controls, and you change the improve the model for everybody off. And what that means is it will not take your data or anything in the chat and train its model. Okay. So that's how you do it. Many of the other tools have similar features that let you turn this off. I always recommend you turn it off. Okay. In the team version of ChatGPT and the enterprise version of ChatGPT, it's automatically turned off and you can't turn it on. They don't have the option to turn it on. Okay. Um, ChatGPT makes mistakes. The early versions made a lot more, but the current versions make a whole lot less. But double check anything it does. It gives you. It'll always sound authoritative and current, and sometimes it will be wrong. So I always fact check whatever ChatGPT gives me. It lacks human insight. It only knows what it's seen in the past. So, as a human, you need to apply your insight to make sure that it's doing the right thing. And it's limited knowledge. ChatGPT 5 is only current up through October 2024. However, it can go out and search the web and find more current stuff. What are hallucinations? When ChatGPT produces nonsensical, irrelevant, or unrelated responses to the topic being discussed. I will give you a hint. The longer you chat with GPT, a single chat, the more likely it is to hallucinate and to get into kind of its own confirmation bias loops where it starts giving you information. It's wrong. You say, hey, that doesn't sound right. Oh, you're right. That's not right. And then it gives you something else. And then later it gives you the same thing it gave you before. So that's what I found is that the longer you work with it, the bigger the context window is, shall we say, the more it has a chance to hallucinate. Um, an early example from back in the early days, a New York lawyer cited fake cases generated by ChatGPT in a brief. He didn't check the cases. It could have been a she. I'm sorry, he or she might have didn't check the data. The judge found it, and well, that lawyer had some problems. So what I like to say is if if you're not an attorney, ChatGPT won't make you one. So just be careful. Understand the model's limitations. These are things you can do to prevent hallucinations. Use clear and specific prompts. Educate users so they know that it's not always right. Never use ChatGPT for sensitive or critical applications. I'll give you an example. Before I retired, I worked for a clinical trial software company, and our software was the stuff that was used at clinical trial medical sites that determine dosages and dispense drug kits. I would never use AI to make those decisions because the last thing that I want to do is injure or kill a patient. So there are some things you just don't want Chat GPT anything near, but for marketing applications and stuff, it's wonderful. Always utilize the most current models and always collaborate with human experts. This is I when I first got into AI, my background is in computer science back when expert systems were a thing. So I know something about this stuff, but I found a course, and the one I found is from AI Foundations. There's a ton of them out there. It taught me how to prompt and use AI. And I recommend if you're going to get serious about this, that you get some real training. And there's a lot of it out there. So suggestions. Think of ChatGPT as an expert assistant that needs supervision. So if you had an intern who had a lot of knowledge but no experience, how would you manage them? Okay. Verify the factual information that ChatGPT gives you. Again, this is the quote I like. If you're not an attorney, ChatGPT won't make you one. For example, I would use ChatGPT if you wanted to review a contract. That's fine. But I would have it review the contract in preparation for your meeting with an attorney. So you're an intelligent consumer of that attorney. But I wouldn't use ChatGPT instead of talking to an attorney. Okay. Um, I've used it to analyze medical diagnoses for family members to prepare them to ask better questions when they go in to see their doctor. But I don't use it to diagnose, and I don't use it to treat. Wholly owned, AI generated content cannot be currently copyrighted. And again, uh, turn off training, and be careful about it. Okay. Um, Somebody asked, when should you use AI tools? If there's personally identifying mission critical information about your company, I probably wouldn't give it to AI. If it's things that you're comfortable with communicating non-public performance data, like transactional data for your sales, I think that's safe, just so long as you have training mode turned off. And of course, anything public, um, give it to ChatGPT, that's fine because it's probably already found it. SCORE discourages the use of AI to create online content from scratch. When AI is used, it should always originate with SCORE and always be edited by a competent professional. So this is our human oversight statement with SCORE, and we feel very strongly about it. In fact, I helped develop SCORE's policy. Okay, other tools that you've heard about. I'm going to go through these quickly. Copilot, there's a paid and a free version. It originally was based on ChatGPT, and I believe that they continue to update it with pieces of ChatGPT. It's a good tool. It's integrated with Office 365. It's almost as good as ChatGPT, but it's really made to integrate with the Microsoft suite. OpenAI tools from ChatGPT are designed to integrate with anybody. Google Gemini, it used to be originally called Bard. There's a free and advanced tier. It's designed to search the web and is dependent on it. It's integrated with the Google Suite. So if you use Google Pages and all that stuff, um, um, that's a good tool for you to use. Most of these tools will now cite sources that it finds from the web, which is really good. Um, it used to be that you couldn't turn off training with the Gemini tool that concerned me. I believe they may have changed that. I'm not a huge Gemini user. I've gone all in with GPT, but it's a fine tool. When it first was released, it was not as good as the other tools, but it's gotten dramatically better. Um, Apple and Android. I'll pick on Apple because I'm an Apple fanboy here. They've built Apple Intelligence into Apple products. It requires an Apple phone 15 or greater, so on and so forth. But they've integrated, just like Copilot has, with its applications, Siri, Apple Mail, Messages, and they've done something really interesting in Apple Intelligence. You can tie your Chat GPT account to it, and then Siri, Siri will ask ChatGPT, or you can actually ask Siri to ask ChatGPT and avoid Siri completely, and it works remarkably well for those of you that have Apple. Android's done very similar things with the Google AI tool suite. I'm not an Android person, but I know they're kind of on par. Last but not least is the tool that I've mentioned to you, Perplexity, free and paid plans, connects to multiple AI engines. It's intended for web search, and it goes out and it does web search, and it summarizes what it's found. It's really good if you're interested in doing research, in fact finding, and all of these tools kind of do this now. A matter of fact, GPT does some of what Perplexity does. The paid versions also have what's called deep research, where rather than looking for a couple, like a dozen websites, it'll take a couple minutes and look for hundreds of websites. And I do a lot of deep research with AI, and it's remarkable. Somebody in the um, chat asked about Manus AI tools. There's another class of tools that are agentic AI tools that will work on longer um, queries that take longer. One is Manus. The other that I personally subscribe to is called GenSpark, and they have multiple AI agents that will do deep research. The one that I love will help you build PowerPoint presentations. They have one that helps you build Google Sheets and whatnot. They're really, really interesting tools. That's kind of if you want to do deep research and solve very specific problems, the Chat GPTs and Gemini are the general purpose tools that you'll use most of the time. Okay, I'm almost done. Then we have time for Q&A. So the key takeaways, it's not a, doesn't think like people. It's a mathematical model. It sometimes gets things wrong. Check its work. It can streamline a lot of tasks as you've seen. ChatGPT is fundamentally changing the way that we do things. And SCORE mentors can help. We have an AI community of practice within SCORE, and we have a couple hundred mentors who collaborate on how to use AI. So if you're wondering how to get started with AI, SCORE can help. Questions, David?
Yes, okay. A lot of questions, not enough time, but we'll get there. Before we even start with the questions, Charlie, I just wanted to clarify one thing. At the beginning, when I introduced the webinar, I mentioned that you'd be emailed the recording, and that's an error. We actually had a recent change that I forgot about. So the recording for this webinar will be available on the SCORE site, not emailed to you, probably within the next 2 days or so. So you can check the SCORE site for that. So having said that, so Charlie, I know that you've been monitoring the chat because there were some questions that came up that you began to answer. So I'm just going to go through these, and if you feel that you've answered the question, just say so, because we're never going to get through all of these.
Sure, of course.
Uh, there was a question about thoughts on copyright in AI. Did you mention copyright when you were talking?
Yeah, that you can't take AI anything right out of the box and copyright the output. However, you can substantially change it and then copyright it. And the example that I used is the guy who made the gorilla and made sure it had all four fingers. So, that's one example. But yeah, the legal ground around AI and copywriting is a little shaky right now. So be careful.
There was a question of perplexity, but I think we're going to skip that because you just addressed
Yep.
perplexity. Do you find one AI platform better for certain queries than another?
Very interesting. So in fact, I do. It used to be that if if you wanted the most creative answers, there's a product called Claude by Anthropic. And that used to be better for if you're doing real creative things, but then it's an arms race with these companies. And ChatGPT came up with GPT-5, And then I started using that and found that it was better than Anthropic at certain things. So I urge you to try the free tiers of these tools, see what works for you, and then pick the one that you're going to pay for. My personal opinion is ChatGPT is working the hardest to stay out in front, but that's my bias because I jumped into ChatGPT with both feet early.
So there's a question about how long ChatGPT will remember. Is there a library that it keeps so you can go back to past prompts, or do you have to always copy into documents yourself?
No, it'll remember all your chats down the side. So there's a list of your chats. You can rename them. You can name the chat whatever you would like. And to my knowledge, there's no limit on the number that it'll keep. And you can even ask them to archive them. So yeah, you can create a library. Like there's one guy who uses it as a fitness coach, and he created a chat about his fitness journey, and he goes back to that chat like we weekly and says, hey, here's my current status on fitness, what should I do next?
So just a heads up, we've got about 5 minutes left. I want to let everybody in the audience know that. You had mentioned, Charlie, about emails and, the Charlie Morris style of writing. There's a question here. How can you give it long text for it to improve, such as a whole article or a speech or
you
a
you
whole book?
you give it in a document. It'll take PDFs, Word documents, PowerPoints, all sorts of stuff. So give it a document in a document, or if it's an article on a website, give it the URL to the website, just so long as it's not behind a paywall.
Okay. All right. I'm skipping over some questions. I know you. Can you train ChatGPT by giving it a website link, or do you have to copy and paste the web copy into the prompt and
Nope.
then ask it to
Nope.
write?
You can give it a website link. It will, all these tools will go out to websites and read website copy.
Okay. How do you do a keyword search through chat?
Um, well, for me, if you're in a context window, I just use a control F and it will give you a certain amount of search, but I'm not really sure what you're trying to accomplish other than just to do a simple search with a browser.
So, question about Zapier and what an API key will allow ChatGPT to do for us.
Perfect. So what Zapier, you when you have a paid ChatGPT account, in short, you can create an API key, and then you can call ChatGPT and send the prompts over the API, and it'll return it. So if you're building a program that you don't want to go into ChatGPT and type into it, but you want your program, you want the user to be able to enter data into your program and then send the data to ChatGPT and have ChatGPT respond with its answers. That's what the API is for. And I will tell you, you pay the API by the number of tokens it uses. And I can't explain in detail here what a token is, but the bottom line is with the paid version of ChatGPT in the chat interface, you pay $20 a month. With the API, you're paying virtually by the call. So just be careful because that pricing can add up if you're not careful.
Two more questions. Can
Sure.
you say a few words about distilling LLMs, the large language models, into small language models, SLMs, and what opportunities do you foresee for SLMs?
Well, that's actually happening. There are various places that you can do it, and they're very useful if you have high security issues where you don't want general access to the large language models, or if they're in specific domains, like you're in a specific business domain that you want to train it on. The only downside is the smaller the model, the larger the opportunity that it hallucinates. So that's something to think about.
And
I think while you're getting to the next one, Dave, there was a question about Charlie's contact information.
okay, go ahead.
That's in the slide deck.
Okay, that'll be.
We're not going to be sending out the slide deck, so I didn't know.
There it is.
Perfect, there you go.
It's on the screen.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah, get that, get that information down because that also goes with the error that I made at the beginning of the session. We're not sending the slide deck out, so.
Take a
Oh,
screenshot.
and that picture is what AI thinks that I look like. Seriously, that's an AI generated photo of
Really?
me. Yes.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap up. I just want to comment, Charlie, that I said at the beginning of the presentation that people were in for a treat, and the comments that I've seen in the chat, some people saying it's the best webinar they've ever attended. You really provide a great deal of information in a very short amount of time, and your expertise is really it's impressive. So thank you so much, Charlie, for doing this. And I would ask everybody to check the score.org in a couple of days to get the recording.
And you're all very welcome, and it's been a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.